What is up, my friends, and welcome to Studio de Jefre, where we have some Cowboys content to talk about today, including an update on one of my favorite recent draft picks of the Cowboys. It sounds like he's going to be taking on a bigger role this year. What Stephen Jones had to say about letting Randy Gregory go, and the draft prospect that we thought was going to be a top 5 or top 10 player that you might have an opportunity to pick if you're the Cowboys. Maybe. And we'll talk about all those things, okay? How about that? Also, what Mike McCarthy's up to with Dan Quinn and Will McClay over the next couple of days. And own. I want to start with a guy that when the Cowboys drafted him, I was a big fan of the pick. It sucks that he got hurt last year, but it was cool to hear Stephen Jones talk today about Jabril Cox, who will be a second-year linebacker for the Cowboys' fourth-round pick last year. This is from my buddy David Hellman, sweet Dave, who said that Stephen Jones said Jabril Cox is coming along great in his rehab from the ACL tear and should be a big plus for us this year. Probably fill right in where Keanu left off, where Keanu left off was being starter-ish. You had some Van Der Esch and some Neal with Parsons, and you had different guys playing. But that's encouraging. I hadn't heard anything really about Jabril Cox this offseason, but when he was drafted by the Cowboys, I do know that in the third round, when they drafted 3 different guys, there were a bunch of scouts in the room that wanted to take Jabril Cox there in the third round, which is why when we went on the air for the 4th round on Cowboys.com, I said, if Jabril Cox is available, they're picking him because they wanted to pick him the day before. But they decided to pick their, defensive line, and a corner. But that would be great for this team. If Jabril Cox could step in and be a capable starter next to Micah Parsons, and then Leighton Vander Esch is kind of your third guy, you can live with that. Depending on how Cox plays. But he was a guy that in the draft, what I look for in NFL linebackers is once upon a time what you were looking for is how fast is he going to run to the running back and hit him? And how hard is he going to hit an offensive lineman in the hole so that somebody else can tackle the running back? The league has changed so much that what I want in a linebacker is to be capable in the running game, but I need you to be able to cover. And that is what Jabril Cox could do at LSU. He was an outstanding coverage linebacker. So that's a nice compliment to Micah Parsons. So cool to hear his name. Excited to see if he's going to have the opportunity to be a starter this year. And it sounds like that could be on the table. And that would be very nice because then I wouldn't feel like you're kind of desperate for another linebacker. You probably need at least one guy to be on the roster. But if your guys that are going to be on the field most of the time are Micah Parsons and Jabril Cox, I actually feel pretty good about that. Next thing from Steven is that he echoed what Jerry said about when they passed on keeping Randy Gregory, which isn't true. Randy Gregory passed on them after agreeing to terms because of, never mind. And Clarence used the names Dorance Armstrong, Dante Fowler, Leighton Vander Esch, as they viewed it as we can sign these 3 guys instead of Randy Gregory. You'll have Dorance and Dante Fowler as pass rushers, and you have a depth linebacker in Leighton Vander Esch, maybe starter, probably depth guy. And I think I'll just leave that up to you guys in the comments. Would you rather have Randy Gregory or Dorance Armstrong, Dante Fowler, and Leighton Vander Esch? Because I believe I lean Gregory. The one thing that will have me defer to the team a little bit is it sounds like Dan Quinn did play a role in the Dante Fowler thing. And Dan Quinn is a dude that I think has earned my and your trust when it comes to, hey, I can get the most out of this guy. The NFL is, it's driven by a lot of things. Great quarterback play, ability to block, depth. But star players at premier positions is a big part of winning in the NFL. And the question is, do you qualify Randy Gregory as a star player at a premier position? because I think it's very fair to say no, that you're hoping that's what he's becoming. Or I guess for Cowboy fans now, you're not hoping that's what he's becoming, but like Denver is hoping that's what he's becoming. And that maybe Dorance Armstrong is 85% of Randy Gregory, and you have your third or fourth edge guy and your third linebacker instead of Randy. Like the way Jerry said it was insane when he was like, let us keep 3 top players. No. But if you say, look, we're cool that Randy picked somewhere else, and with the money we were going to give him, we got what we think, and Dorance Armstrong is a starting-ish edge guy. Dante Fowler, who we think Dan Quinn is going to have, be somebody that can rush the passer for us, and Leighton Vander Esch, a depth linebacker. Tell me in the comments, which one do you prefer? Because I do think it's debatable. It's just not debatable when Jerry tried to phrase it as 3 top players. That was not debatable. Next, I want to talk to you about an NFL prospect that going into the draft process was a top 5 player for pretty much every expert, and that I kind of struggled with, and now it's getting really, really interesting. Notre Dame safety Kyle Hamilton. So story comes out that at his pro day at Notre Dame, his 40-yard dash times, according to the great Dane Brugler, 4.70, 4.74. That's really slow for an NFL safety. What's weird is he ran a 4.59 at the combine, and nobody runs slower at pro day on a handheld than they do on the laser at the combine. So it's really, really weird and confusing. But you see a lot of draft analysts now who are talking about Kyle Hamilton as, hey, forget about that top 5 thing. Maybe think more top 15. And he was a dude that I struggled with on tape because I assumed that the whole world wasn't wrong. And so Kyle Hamilton wasn't at the top of my priority list to watch to get ready for the draft. Like, it was like, yeah, I'll get to him. Just like Aiden Hutchinson, the Michigan pass rusher, was not at the top of my list of guys to watch because they're not going to be a factor for the Cowboys. I wonder if some of what we're hearing means that Kyle Hamilton is about to be your Derwin James. Remember where he was going to be a top 10 pick, and then he started getting into the, what was that, mid to late teens when he got picked? He got near the Cowboys pick, and it was like, holy crap, are they going to have a shot at Derwin James? And I wonder, where is Kyle Hamilton going to be picked? I will preface this with I watched one Kyle Hamilton game just to have a feel for him so that I could talk about him in February and March. And it was like, he's not going to be a Cowboy, so I'll have a full scouting report later. Who cares? I'm just going to watch him a little bit. And when I watched him, I was like, I mean, I'll put him on my board as a 1, as a first rounder, just because I think the whole world's not wrong. I'll let him sit here in his little placeholder spot, and then eventually I'll watch him and put him where he goes. But what I watched, he wasn't a top 10 player to me. He wasn't a top 15 player to me. He was a giant safety that makes some really explosive, fun plays and has a big old tackle radius, and it's hard to throw a ball over him in the underneath area, and he's a good blitzer. But what I'm saying about him is basically the scouting report of what Jaron Kearse was last year for the Cowboys. Now, there are people who think that Kyle Hamilton is better than I do, and I'm cool with that. Like, I had a little interaction, little one, with my buddy John Owning today on the Tweeter, who thinks that Kyle Hamilton can play deep safety. I don't. I don't think he can cover guys in the slot. I don't think he can play deep. I think he is a play going forward and make some really good disruptive plays. But I just don't know that that is a top 15 or 20 pick to me. And honestly, if you got to 24 and Kyle Hamilton were available for the Cowboys, I think I already have the guy who's going to do that job on my team in Jaron Kearse. So I would pick Texas A&M offensive lineman Kenyon Green. I would pick Boston College offensive lineman Zion Johnson. I would pick Iowa center Tyler Linderbaum. I would pick Drake London, Traylon Burks, different wide receivers over him. And I don't know if maybe I'm a crazy person for that take, but I'm okay with that. What I saw when I watched him, and I'll go watch 2 or 3 more games and have a really good feel for him. But I didn't watch a guy that was consistently dominant. I watched a guy that was a really big safety linebacker hybrid that outside of straight line long speed is a pretty explosive athlete. It's going to make plays, and he's going to be good for somebody. But I think he's going to be basically a strong safety linebacker hybrid in the NFL. And that's just not, for me, super early in a draft. And maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe he'll be Derwin James or even better. I just don't know. I always struggled with him. And so seeing those 40 times and some of the discussions that were happening around him was really interesting to me today. Mike McCarthy, Will McClay, and Dan Quinn are going to be in Tuscaloosa tomorrow for Alabama's Pro Day. The Cowboys draft meetings start on Monday. Names to know from Alabama: Jamison Williams and John Mechie, their wide receivers. I couldn't imagine, because they're both coming off knee injuries, that they're going to be doing much out there, but check on them medically, get to know guys for the receivers. Fedarian Mathis, defensive tackle at Alabama, I think is potentially a top. He's a day 2 guy, 2nd or 3rd round defensive tackle, I think, nose tackle. And Christian Harris, the linebacker, I think are the guys you'll be most interested in as a Cowboys coaching staff. You could throw in Evan Neal, their offensive tackle, but I think he's a top 10 pick, so I wouldn't really worry about that. And so that's what the Cowboys are up to today. Maybe go live a little bit later, but let me know, are you interested in Kyle Hamilton at 24? And would you rather have Randy Gregory or Dorance Armstrong, Dante Fowler, and Leighton Vander Esch? Let me know that in the comments. And remember, you have no idea what anybody's going through. So be cool to everyone. I love you. Bye.